have your backup option, because it really is a critical business feature, right? I mean, payment processing is your entire lifeline. If you can't take payments, what do you have?
Welcome to the Business Ownership Podcast, brought to you by Awareness Strategies, helping you navigate the waters between entrepreneurship and ownership. Hey there, peeps. This is Michelle Nedlak, and I'm super glad that you're here with us today because I am here with my most amazing guest, Don. Don, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, thanks, Michelle.
Good, say that's your cue.
Oh, okay. All right.
Now, give us kind of the 5,000-foot view of who you are and a quick intro to your business.
Well, who I am might take more than 5 seconds. I'm still figuring that out. But essentially, we are InChek merchant services, and we offer payment processing services to businesses. So we provide everything from credit card processing to check and ACH processing to consulting to chargeback management and gateways, and we kind of do it all.
All that fun stuff. Excellent. So basically, you help businesses collect money.
Yeah. I mean,
awesome.
in some senses, I'm perhaps someone's most important vendor, because if something goes wrong, the business grinds to a halt.
Right? You can't accept payments on a credit card.
You can't accept payments. That's why I always joke with my friends when my clients have an emergency, which never really happens, but if they have an emergency, it's a big deal because their business is shut down.
Right? Absolutely. So how did you get into payment services as a thing?
Oh, way by accident. I was in college and I was on a pre-med path. I wanted to be a doctor. I still do. I'm still in the medical field, but it's a topic for another day, perhaps. But awesome. All right. So I was essentially in college, living on $400 or so a month, working as a firefighter EMT. And a friend of mine on the fire department's mother had given him $250,000 to start a business processing bad checks. Back then, people were still writing checks, and this was the Midwest. And he said, "Hey, Don, you have a good personality. Why don't you come try sales?" And I said, "Well, I mean, why not? I have just enough for gas and beer, you know." And turns out I was pretty good at it. So after a few months, I was really the only one bringing accounts in. They were paying me pennies. My friend was kind of very interested in going to the bar and giving out his business card to girls because it said CEO on it. We were like 19, you know. And the rest of the staff was busy writing business plans and doing other things. And I was like, well, I think I can do this myself. So I took the $250 I had in my account and I bought a fax machine on clearance for $99. And and I made a fax package using V1 of Adobe Illustrator. This is back in 2000, 2001. And sorry about all these texts. I got to put focus on. I haven't done that yet. Do not disturb. Yes, leave me alone. I'm busy with Michelle. And so I found a vendor who would handle our checks for us and pay us a commission. So I really had no overhead. And I started going door to door, knocking on doors, making cold calls, all that kind of stuff. I went to school in Ohio and I lived in Connecticut. So one trip, I had this kind of really wacky old car. It was a 1993 Mazda Protege. And because I was on the fire department, I had wired it with lights and sirens and everything else. But see, a 1993 Mazda Protege didn't have an alternator that could really support all that stuff, because I went a little crazy. And, I did it all myself.
It looked like a Christmas tree going down there.
Yeah, the whole thing was wired, radio, siren, light bar on top, dash lights, flashing headlights, the whole deal, And back then, lights were strobe and they weren't as efficient, so they drew a lot of energy. Now they're all LEDs. So anyway, long story short, and the car had no shocks pretty much. So it was like driving a boat. And so it would break down on average every other trip back and forth from Connecticut to Ohio. I just kind of counted on that. I guess Do Not Disturb didn't work because I still hear tones. I guess I cannot force the universe to leave me alone.
2022.
So I'm telling you this story because one trip it was like Friday night or something, and it's midnight, and I'm in Eastern Ohio, somewhere near Cleveland, and the car just shuts off in the middle of the highway. And it was no traffic around, thankfully. And,
Thank God.
this was back before cell phones and GPS and traffic alerts and, all of that. So I just glided off the exit and left it on this and like walked to the cheapest. Fortunately, there was like a $25 hotel right there,
right.
And a Motel 6 or something. And so I left it there I got it off the exit ramp and just kind of left it there for overnight. Walked to this hotel, checked in, and next morning I called AAA or whatever and had it towed to the nearest garage. And it was like Saturday at noon or whatever. And he's like, well, we can't get to it till Monday because we're closed tomorrow. And all right, so I got 2 days in Cleveland. What am I going to do? So I started going door to door, trying to sell my services. And I picked up what was to date my biggest client. It was a chain of Papa John's pizza restaurants up there. And that's just kind of how I did things back then. It was like knocking on doors and making phone calls and trying to make, lemons. The universe gives me lemonade or a broken alternator. And one day I got the car fixed, and I had no money back then. So I was like building up debt on my credit card that probably had a $1,000 college student limit on it or whatever, And yeah, so anyway, that's kind of the humorous way we got started, but the one thing led to another, and we grew to where I could actually afford to do proper marketing. And then around 2008, during the economic collapse, recession, whatever you want to call it, we switched over to more credit card payments because a couple things happened. People stopped taking checks. Now for pizza delivery, you could just pay online. You don't need to give a check to the Domino's driver or whatever. And my early endorsements were like independent grocers, chains of IGAs. And actually we had endorsement from IGA itself and then various food associations around it because, the thing was grocery stores, at least 20 years ago, tended to be owned by older people. Like young entrepreneurs don't start grocery stores. And so because of that, they continued to take checks for a while. The clientele was more elderly. Check writing was really popular. So it was a good market for us. So I really went after like school pictures, pizza delivery, and grocery stores. And so we had a couple of chains of grocery stores in the Midwest, independent chains, maybe 4, 5, 6 stores. Well, then Walmart was starting to grow, and Walmart came into the area and put all these mom and pop shops that had been open for 100 years, right under. And so we kind of hit financial rock bottom right around 2007 or 8, whenever that was. And that's when I morphed into, all right, well, checks are not going to be a sustainable business model. So what's next for us? And morphed into credit card processing, and then found our niche of internet marketers and e-commerce merchants and that whole info marketing space and coaching and things like that. I've been doing that ever since.
Very cool.
All right, I just rambled. That's probably way too long of an introduction.
No, it was fascinating. One, going down memory lane. 2, realizing that 2008 wasn't that long ago, and yet our technology since then has exploded.
It's funny because my girlfriend and I were on a road trip across country from Vegas to Boston via Oregon and Washington, and we slated 3 weeks. I got home 3 months later. But the national parks got the best of us. But I'm telling you this story because we went to Ohio, and I still have some old friends out there and things. And so I went up to campus and showed her. It was like really surreal, and just down memory lane, where technology was 20 years ago, and went by my old fire department. Actually met up with who was a guy who was a good friend of mine back then on the fire department, who I hadn't talked to in 20 years, who's now the chief of police. I got to hang out with him and catch up. And it was kind of surreal. My girlfriend's younger than me. So we're talking about all this old technology. And I think she's probably kind of like dazed and confused. But
what's a fax machine? It spits out fax.
Exactly. I think she actually,
it's like Trivial Pursuit. It just kicks out the fax. Nothing but the fax.
It's funny you say that because I'm pretty sure when I told her that story, she had heard of a fax machine, kind of like I had heard of an 8-track. And I think my father had a couple 8-tracks when I was very, very super, super young. And 8-inch floppy disks and all that. So, but yeah, fax was a thing at one point, as you know.
Hey, Well, and it amazes me as well, because once upon a time you had to go and get, your business license, your bank account, your merchant account, you had to apply for it. Sometimes they let you have one, sometimes they didn't. If you had too erratic of a business plan, then, everything was shot, and you had to figure out a way to even out your income instead of doing, events 3 times a year and making a ton of money. They did not like that at that time, which is kind of funny. I went, but that's my business model. I'm supposed to do about it. So that was always fun. So what are some of the things that businesses are looking for or merchants are looking for? How does business go down now?
Well, it being in my space, it's kind of cool because nearly every business is a prospect, right? And everyone needs payment processing, and,
right.
and there's nothing we can't do per se. We specialize in internet marketers, online businesses, coaching, like I said, info products, nutraceuticals, and things like that. But, it doesn't mean that we can't take the corner Chinese restaurant as well. So it's, ideally I'm looking for anybody who takes payments. I hate to say it, but that's kind of the client.
No, totally get that. But is there stipulations? Is there kind of rules and requirements anymore? Is it just, hey, you're in business, great, here's an account?
What do you mean by rules and regulations? Like, is the industry regulated heavily? Yes.
No. So once upon a time when I was coaching, we had to apply for a merchant account, and because we did 3 events or 4 events, 3-day events 4 times a year, I'll spit that out. Yeah. We had to go through and get a particular merchant account that would allow us to do business that way, because they wanted us to have money every 3 months.
Right. So yes, and that's what we do. We handle those kind of launches, events, which is called non-delivery exposure. So the problem with selling tickets for an event a year out is what happens if the next COVID pandemic comes through and the event gets canceled and you've spent all that money. I'm on the hook for it, literally, because I'm in line I hold my own risk. So how we handle all that, we have ways to do that. And so we do that. We do a lot of what would be considered high risk merchants. And I use that term lightly because very few clients consider themselves high risk. And if someone calls me and says I'm high risk, it probably means I don't want them because they have a different idea.
You really are high risk.
Yeah. But that, the banks consider essentially any transaction where the card isn't present high risk because the fraud risk is higher. So, Netflix is high risk and technically, but then within that, there's different degrees of stratification of,
what do they consider high risk now? Or what do you consider high risk now? Not like the real high risk that are like, we're not going there.
Right.
But like, what are some of the standard things that a normal business would do and they don't realize that it's high risk?
Coaching, any kind of annual memberships where someone's paying for a service in advance, because the chargeback period is 6 months past the last expected date of delivery. So if you buy a 12-month package, that person has 18 months to charge it back. 2-year packages, just do the math. It's 30 months. And travel is very high, is considered very high risk. Certainly, like you said, events and anything that's in the future delivery. So there's ways to mitigate that. And there's ways that we handle that. But nutraceuticals are considered very high risk because of all the FTC issues that have happened over the years. And, 10 years ago, people were paying $90 a month for teeth whitening. And I used to tell my clients, why don't you find out where your continuity trail is? Like, no one's going to pay $90 a month for a teeth whitener indefinitely. They wouldn't have any teeth left, right? So, where are your clients trailing off? Where are they canceling? Is it 3 months? Then just offer them a 3-month package rather than continuity into perpetuity, but that was the thing back then. And of course, the FTC cracked down on that. It was called where continuity, where you didn't opt in. You were sort of enrolled. You bought a $4.95 free trial, and suddenly you're getting billed $90 a month. And so a lot's changed. Since then. But that was kind of the wild west back then.
But thank God, because that used to drive me nuts. I don't know who came up with that, and it was. Well, that was one of my most frustrating moments in digital marketing, was when that came out and happened. And at the same time, I think a lot of the big companies quit having their contact information on their websites. So not only are they suddenly charging you $97 a month for no reason, and you can't get a hold of them to figure out how to make it stop. So
Yep.
you guys must have been going AWOL.
Well, the thing was, it was the last week of, I think it was like the last week of December 2009 or 10, when thousands and thousands of merchants were just terminated across the country. The FTC came in and got on the banks, and all of those businesses were just upended. I remember that week very well. But now you can't really do that anymore. MasterCard and Visa require contact information on the page. So when we underwrite an account, there has to be a contact. There has to be some contact us provision that works.
You should really let Amazon know that.
Yeah.
I know they exist. I know that there's a phone somewhere. I just don't know where it is.
Yeah.
It's not like they're a fly by night, but.
And I had Amazon customer service saved in my phone, and they canceled that number. It no longer works. I don't know. I don't know how they're getting away with it.
Yeah. I take it you don't have that account.
I don't have Amazon. I don't.
So if anybody listening to this knows how to get Don on Amazon, that'd be awesome.
That would be pretty cool.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know what they do. I don't know what Bezos does. I never thought about Amazon.
I'm sure he's self-sufficient.
Yeah. There's certain thresholds. After a certain amount of annual revenue, there's provisions where you kind of can go direct with the card associations. It's like the major airlines, we do travel agents and so forth that are booking tickets. But like if you're Delta Airlines, you have your own special MCC code and your own relationship with the card brands. And that's why it's nearly impossible to charge back an airline ticket bought through an airline. You buy it through a travel agency, you can charge it back like that. And my travel clients, struggle with that all the time. But try charging back an airline ticket that you've bought from delta.com or, it just doesn't work.
Wow.
You can try, but you'll never win. So in a way,
theory,
you're
better
safer
to go through the travel agents.
In a way, you're safer buying through a third-party travel agent because they can't, they're like any other merchant. It's much easier to charge back.
Okay, so talk to me about this, because I find some of the chargeback things I find really rude, like Walmart, because a lot of people don't realize that Walmart's a consignment store. It's not a retail outlet, which of course they will never say, oh, Walmart, the new consignment store. But so when you send something back, you're not sending it back to Walmart, and Walmart's not taking the cut on that. It's whoever manufactured the thing or offered it to Walmart if there's somebody in between there.
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
Oh, and Costco and that's why they have such fantastic return policies. So yeah, just return it anytime. 30 days, you've worn out. We don't care. Just send it back, because they send it back to their supplier, and their supplier is the one that suffers.
Right. Yeah. And I think Amazon kind of does the same thing, right?
Totally does the same. Amazon doesn't own anything.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. So the largest companies in America have figured out how to brush off the liability on the smaller guys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you're saying that all the travel agencies work like that? Is it all bigger companies that work like that, or like how do you know if you're in that kind of position? Because travel is a big one, because stuff happens all the time. It's not like we're going to go to Ford and buy a car and then return it just because I didn't like it. It's kind of a little oddity.
Well, I have a really large travel client who's a good friend of mine. And what will happen there is, all the airlines offer a 24-hour free cancellation policy. So somebody wants to cancel within 24 hours, no problem. Sure. After 24 hours, he has to request a manual credit from the airline. So his customers will call the bank and charge it back, and he's lost the revenue. And now he has to go request a credit from the airline, and he does millions of dollars a month, so it's not, but that's the process. And that manual credit can take 6 to 8 weeks to come in.
Right. Well, and that was a problem that my son had pre-COVID. He was down in South America and had bought a ticket through somebody and then had to change it. And I think he had to change it because it got booked on the wrong day or something weird like that. And then that caused this whole calamity of okay, just go buy another ticket here, use my card, and we'll figure that out later. But yeah, I think it's interesting to me how we don't really care what the policy is until we care. And then all of a sudden it becomes a big issue.
Yep, 100%.
So what kind of questions do business owners typically ask you that are their concerns or fears when they're going into choosing who they're going to go with?
It varies depending on what their prior experience has been. If they've had issues with a prior processor, then they'll specifically ask about.
So they know those things that.
Yeah. So, I was with Stripe and I did a launch and Stripe held my funds and wouldn't talk to me for 6 months, okay, so we can deal with that, or I had an account with the X processor and as soon as I exceeded my limit, they shut it down, whatever the issue may have been. Then they want to know about how we handle those kinds of issues. If they're new to processing or haven't had any issues per se, then they want to know, pricing, how we can save them money, how our technology interfaces with their CRM, is everything compatible, are there plugins, and whatever specific questions, if it's a mobile merchant, how is our mobile app similar or different from Square? It's all whatever is pertinent whatever, I'm Italian, I'm talking to my hand. Whatever is pertinent to their industry.
Awesome. Cool. No, that gives me a great and a lot of people I think don't realize this because I've had a lot of friends that got their assets held by Stripe and substantial, like 300 grand worth. Like, no, we're just keeping it.
So Stripe, what people don't realize is that Stripe is what's called an aggregator. So they have one merchant ID and they put a whole bunch of clients in that merchant ID. They essentially they aggregate them into one stream. So therefore, when you sign, the reason it's so easy to sign up with Stripe is because they're not underwriting an account for your business. They're putting you in with everybody else, which is great. It makes it very turnkey, very quick and easy to get going. But as soon as there's any issues, it's like, whoa, hold on, what? Because you can't pollute that bin essentially. You chargeback spike or whatever. Now everybody is affected, or Stripe internally. I mean, not like they're going to call the others and say, hey, but they have to control that and keep the thresholds under certain levels. So that's why they're so quick to pull the trigger when anything looks, fishy, because they haven't underwritten the account for your business specifically. They have no idea what you actually do. And so I once had somebody ask me why we're better than Stripe, whatever. So I went to one of my clients who had recently switched to us and I said, hey, can you just write something about why you like us better than Stripe? And she sends me a 3-page essay, literally. I'm like, no one's going to read 3 pages, Rachel, but she's very thorough and she went through all the details and, their experience with Stripe versus their experience with us and
that's awesome
and so forth. So, if you're working with Stripe and you haven't had any issues, just keep in mind that you're a number. You are numbers on a screen to somebody sitting in a cubicle who sees a flag come up based on a computer algorithm, doesn't want to lose their job. So the first thing that they'll do is hold funds, freeze funds, et cetera, rather than like what way we handle things like that is I pick up the phone and I call you and I say, hey, what's going on? We need to talk through this issue, whatever.
Awesome. I love it. So what's one of your biggest pet peeves in the industry?
Oh, actually, that's funny you asked because I just hired last week a new VP of biz dev. And he used to be one of my biggest competitors and he's exactly what I've been looking for 10 years, but never found, because I don't use agents and sales guys or gals because the industry is so full of deceit. Agents and sales guys in my industry run around and tell people whatever they want to hear. Now, they don't hold any risk. They're not doing the underwriting. All they're incentivized to do is close the deal. So they'll tell merchants whatever they want to hear. For example, I once had a liquor store owner, an Indian man, send me a statement and tell me he would switch to me if I saved him $500 a month, because some other agent walked in there and said he could save him $450 a month. Okay. So I look at the statement. His total bill for the prior month, total processing cost, was $387. So how am I going to, I'm going to pay his processing for him, but somebody told him, we can do that. And so I despise poor ethics. And so I've never had a sales team. I've done all of our growth organically through my own network and so forth, but I'm really excited. Just hired the right guy, and excited to see where that goes. And he shares the same morals and values that I do. So, but that's my biggest pet peeve is the lying, the deceit, anything to close the deal mentality.
Awesome. So on the opposite end of the spectrum, what's your favorite part of your business?
Getting to know so many cool people. I mean, I've got clients in every industry. Most of them have become friends. I've got a huge network of resources based on that. And I love networking and I like people. So it's if I was, say, a coach, right? Most of my colleagues would be coaches that I meet at conventions, whatever. I'm just kind of just making this up. I mean, I'm in the medical field also, right? So a lot of my colleagues are medical people, but in InChek, all my clients are across the board. So I get to know a lot of people.
Nice. So give us an example. You gave us a couple there of a Cinderella story of one of your favorite clients.
Oh, okay. There's one that stands out. A man named Richard Rossi. I don't know if you know the name. His father actually wrote the book in the 1960s that coined the term the third world. He wrote a book about the Cold War and coined first, second, third world. It was kind of cool. But Richard started a company way back in the 70s or 80s called the National Youth Leadership Conference, and he would invite high school kids with high GPAs or whatever to go to these events. And I used to get invited every year. I was a pretty good student, but I could never afford the fees. It was a for-profit thing. It kind of is marketed as if it's like he's very good with his marketing, put it that way. But you open these things as a kid and you're like, well, I got invited to the National Youth Leadership Conference, and anyway, I grew up in kind of a struggling family and couldn't afford to go, but I was so excited to be invited every year. I kept the invitations in my box of stuff from high school. So fast forward to 2012. And a mutual friend arranges a dinner with this guy called Richard Rossi. I didn't know who he was. Richard's starting a new venture and needs a merchant account. That's all I knew going in. So we start talking and I find out who he is. And he had just sold that company and he was starting a new thing for high school kids who want to be future doctors and medical scientists. And he needed the processing for that and so forth. But when I realized who he was, I literally went home and dug out the letter he had sent me in 1994 awesome. And put it on Facebook and tagged him, and he was floored, and so was I. It was just crazy. How life went. He's been a client of mine ever since and a dear friend, and he's an amazing human. And I've been to a couple of his conferences, and he does great work. But it's I was just how things come full circle in life, Right.
Oh, that's awesome.
So when I went to one of his events in 2014, one of the first ones he launched, and I said, well, it's only 20 years late, but I'm making up for what I couldn't do in high school.
I'm here.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what are some of the stumbling blocks that somebody might be thinking right now? Oh my God, Donna, I need you so badly, other than straight freezing their accounts?
Well, are you guys asking like what reasons people would need us, or
why is like an entrepreneur sitting there going they're chickadee boo or they're not? What are they what's not going?
What's in their head
that they're going? Yeah.
Okay. Here's what's in their head. Then I know this very well. Oh, Don sounds like a cool guy. It looks like a great company to work with. But man, the process of switching merchant accounts, I got to provide statements. I got to fill out all this information. I got to provide bank accounts. It's what I have now is working for me. So yeah, I don't know if I don't know. I'll think about next week kind of thing, and we deal with that a lot because underwriting an account. Yeah, I need documentation. I need bank statements and so forth. But that dynamic of people think it's difficult to switch, and I make it really easy. I do everything electronically, electronic signatures. We do it all for you, but I can't download your bank statements unless you give me access to your account, which you probably won't and probably shouldn't. But after we have everything, and I make it easy. But then, that dynamic also is one of the reasons why we have such high client retention, because nobody wants to go through the process of switching, again. So, what I tell people is, well, you know what? If it's what you have is working, great. How about this? Let's do a backup account for you. Everybody should have a second account. I'll make it really easy. I'll do it with minimal paperwork, and then it's done. And then, a month from now, if you really like us and you want to move more volume over, then, that's your choice. Let us impress you. But the pain point, the struggle is people perceive it as a lot of work to switch merchant accounts, and I can make that very easy and automated.
Nice. Love that. And they think that way until something happens. So what kind of things happen?
Yeah. So I've had
happen that they go, oh my God.
This is my pain point, because I'll have these conversations. Like, I've talked to a lot of JVMM members and so forth, had great conversations. Yep. And they're like, well, I want to do it. So they start the application process, 2 months later, I'm still waiting on a bank statement, whatever. It's pending in our CRM, and then one day, inevitably, I'll get a text or an email saying, hey, we need that account set up yesterday because something went wrong, or they're suddenly going to launch. And I'm like, well, I can't do it that fast. I have higher powers at the bank and so forth that have to, review things. So, but that inevitably happen, or we have Stripe and it's just so easy, blah, blah, blah. Okay. 3 months later, I can't put another dime through Stripe. They're holding all my funds. I need an account tomorrow. And, so that's why I say have your backup option, because it really is a critical business feature, right? I mean, payment processing is your entire lifeline. If you can't take payments, what do you have? Right. That's why I say, let's do it now. Let's set up something, even if it's a backup account, even if you think Stripe's the greatest thing since sliced bread, no problem. I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise, but let's have everything ready to go in the background in case you need us. And then it's done and it's ready, and you just flip the switch rather than, me having to be in ER mode trying to fix this mess for you.
And just to make a note, it is the only other merchant account we've mentioned on this show. So odds are pretty good. Something's gone awry there. Just saying.
It's just things to make you go. I get a lot of, everyone knows Stripe. Stripe and Square. Those guys came in from outside the industry, transform the industry, because they created a turnkey system with integration between the gateway and the merchant processing. And, banking technology is antiquated. The Federal Reserve was still on DOS until like 2000.
Is there still a Federal Reserve? I didn't think they actually existed. Like, why?
Late 2000s, they switched to Windows from DOS, but meanwhile, the rest of the world switched, 12 years earlier. It was the first Windows 95, I think was the first iteration. I'm a Mac guy now, but
I remember going into the bank when they changed that, because everybody knew the shortcut keys to click, and now they have to use a mouse, and they're like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
that they're all losing their mind. The clients are losing their mind. Everybody lost their minds for like a solid week there, and it's like, okay, I got this. We can click. I know how to use mouse now. This is good.
Really, isn't it funny? Like, every time there's a new technology that comes out, we all have to get used to it, and it's always painful for a period. And then we can't imagine life without
it. Exactly. So on that note, I know there are listeners are going to want more from you. How did they start their journey with you?
So 2 ways. The easiest way is just go to our website, inchek.net, inchek.net. And there's a link that says apply now. It's 5 fields of information. It'll take you literally 15 seconds. That opens a lead in our CRM. It gets me your information. I can contact you, start putting everything together, and so forth. The second way is you're welcome to email me directly, don@inchek.net. If you have questions, or you want to discuss the process before you actually fill out those 5 fields of information. So
that may or may not autofill on for you.
Yeah.
Awesome. So peeps, of course, we will have those links in the show notes. And of course, you can always go to awarenessstrategies.com/blog and search for Don InChek and merchant accounts, and you will find him there. So awesome. At this point, I get to ask you, at what point in your life did you know that you were a special kind of crazy enough to think that you could become an entrepreneur?
Oh, I didn't. I just took that. I just
Just
I'm kind of someone who just jumps and then looks back later. So I didn't know anything about business when I decided to go work for my friend's company. And then when I went on my own, I went, what the hell am I doing? Like, I don't know, I don't know anything. And fortunately I had some good mentors in my life who encouraged me and taught me what I needed to know and so forth. But, I did it organically with no financing, with just the $250 I had in my account. So, now if I had had the resources then that I had now, company would have grown a lot faster and all that. But, I just kind of waded through the swamp on my own and with assistance from, good advisors until I figured it out.
Right. I love it. That, 95% of us do.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's difficult for people to understand entrepreneurialism, right? Because I have friends from way back when that make comments, it must be nice to be you and have your life. You got really lucky. And well, no, it's really been a massive roller coaster, but,
Right.
but it's not like when things are down or I'm having issues, I put that all over social media, so people see photos of me all over the world and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, it's a highlight reel.
So, I had this conversation once with my brother and he goes, oh, all business people are, cheap and, stealing your money, blah, blah, blah. And I went, you didn't realize that all of your sisters run their own businesses.
What does he do?
He's a psychiatric nurse. Union.
And he deals with crazy people all day long. So he's a little jaded.
Well, in all fairness, growing up with us, he was surrounded by people all day too. So it was a ton of fun. Don, you've been absolutely awesome. Thank you so much. Any last words for our peeps?
I'll just say anyone who finds this conversation interesting, reach out. Let's chat, because I may have resources that are valuable to you, through my client network, whether or not you want to open an account with us or whatever. Well, I love networking people together. So like I said, one of the things I like most about my business is having such a wide, vast array of different of clients and people in different industries. So if there's some resource you're looking for, there's a chance I might be able to connect you with that, and then everyone's happy. And so if you enjoyed this interview, reach out and let's talk.
Awesome. I love it. Thanks, Don, for your time. I appreciate it. I know how valuable it is.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you, Michelle.
Peeps, this is Michelle Nedelec. Thank you for being here with us today. Be sure to subscribe to the show and share it with your friends. We love helping you grow.
Are you running a business over 7 figures but still struggling with technology headaches? Pay attention, you do not want to miss this offer. This podcast episode is brought to you by Awareness Strategies, who is offering a custom-built digital adoption roadmap for anyone running a business over 7 figures who's wanting to grow their business in the next 5 years. And it's not just a roadmap, they offer full implementation as well if that scares the out of you. Check out awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap for more details today. The link's in the show's notes. Don't regret not doing this. Do it now. That's awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap.